First and foremost, our condolences go out to the Prude family and their loss. If there's one message that can be taken from here today, it should be this. Our country's in a crisis. There are many changes that are needed. Some of them are very complicated. Some answers are already known. Our justice system is founded on a principle to seek the truth and to have equal justice for all, regardless of who you are. Seeking the truth, nothing more should be our solution to solving our most pressing problems. Everyone has a responsibility and must be committed to making that process not just better, but perfect. This is not only going to take a commitment, but it's going to take trust. We did not immediately address this matter because of one reason. It was necessary for us to seek answers to several questions that we had, some of which are the shared concerns from the family and the public. It's important to provide accurate information that has not been released by city government. Transparency has to be more than just a word to be repeated. It should be a course of action to follow. The union first learned of the incident by the chief's office reaching out to request our members who were involved in the incident with Mr. Prude to speak with investigators from the major crimes that were investigating the matter. This would be a criminal investigation, not an internal investigation. The message that was conveyed from the chief's office at that time was that there was no concerns with the actions of our members and that they had followed correct protocols per their training. I want to repeat that. There's no concerns with the actions of our members and that they had followed correct protocols per their training. Since it's a criminal investigation, union representatives did not accompany our members on that interview. Our members involved in that incident agreed to cooperate and agreed to be interviewed, despite having the constitutional right not to do so. The department, after interviewing our members, continued the investigation of that incident. During the subsequent investigation, no other members, as far as we know, were interviewed, and the union was not involved in any way with that investigation. Our union representation would not come into play until once that investigation had concluded and if an internal investigation were to commence. Only yesterday did we learn that an internal investigation has been initiated. Only yesterday did we learn that 7 of our members would be suspended. Like everyone else, we have concerns. A troubling concern is on the releasing of evidence during a criminal investigation. There is an absolute prejudicial concern on taking such a reckless action regarding any incident that is an ongoing criminal investigation. I can think of no other situation, to my knowledge, in this city that I can recall when that has occurred. Such action would never be taken against a civilian suspect who is the subject of a criminal investigation. Police officers deserve the same consideration and respect. But it's important to remember, the release of information is needed to be transparent, but it must be balanced with ensuring the rights and the protections of any individual involved in that investigation, and that includes victims and suspects. The union has been called out in several social media accounts as being aware of circumstances of this incident, and even being a participant in withholding information. Without a conclusion to this criminal investigation, we know no more than anyone else does at this time. From our limited involvement in this matter and the lack of additional information, we have had no review or internal discussions on this incident up until this conference has occurred. The union was not aware of any concerns and were not made aware of any concerns that may have been raised by the family or anyone else until being made aware only minutes before the press conference on Wednesday. After the press conference and the subsequent events that transpired, our initial response was ensuring that our members who were called out and named in the press release were safe. The union was placed in a very difficult situation and determined it would not be prudent and in the interest of our organization and comment until we had sufficient information to respond in an informative way. And all of you know how difficult that is for me, not to want to get out in front of something. The union completely understands the strong concerns that the family and the public has on not being provided with adequate information. We stand along with the family and the public in echoing that same concern. What is disheartening, but certainly not surprising, is the immediate reactions from some, especially social media comments from at least 2 members of City Council calling our members murderers. After working almost around the clock to obtain as much information as possible, we now have a better understanding of what has occurred. While we ask for the public and the media to also remember and respect that there's still an active investigation by the State Attorney General's office. We are hopeful that the State Attorney General's office will continue to conduct a fair and impartial investigation to the facts of the matter. We believe, and more than believe, we know there's substantial amount of information to adequately determine what the circumstances are surrounding the death of Daniel Prude. After conversations with our legal team, we have been cautioned, and I'll say over and over again, to be careful in discussing specifics. So I'm going to try to answer your questions in a more general nature and to not get specific since it's still under investigation. So, thank you. So I'll take...
When did you first see the video?
I just saw the video 2 days ago.
Did you watch the whole hour and a half or the 12-minute roughly clip that was posted widely on the internet?
No, I didn't watch that one. I'm sorry, I did watch that one.
That one being?
The edited version, briefly. I didn't give it much review because I will not. I don't look at that as a fair and accurate representation of that night.
And what were your initial thoughts seeing that video 2 days ago?
Well, you look at the video, and then you also have to take so much encompassing information and placing that video in the context that it had to be. It's also important to understand that, especially in the edited video, you may hear things or you may not hear things, or what you may see may be a difference in the distance of someone's actually speaking. There's a number of factors involved.
Based on your initial thoughts, though, could you just give us a sense of what you initially thought when you saw the video and you did hear some of the comments made by your officers?
Well, that's what I would speak to, that I think in order to answer what you believe or your concerns are, I think you would look at it not in the context that we did. That's why we spent 2 days on this. We worked virtually around the clock. What you saw is not complete and certainly not accurate, but that speaks to what needs to be done.
What's inaccurate about it?
What needs to be done is to have this investigation completed and to have everything at that point in time shown by an agency that's independent and that's investigating it, and that's the most important thing. There are specific things that are heard in the edited version that need not to be played in that edited version, but to be shown separately and where they occur and why they occur. I have to be careful what I speak to on specifically on that.
Well, Mike, let me ask you this, since we're talking about the officers in the video. let's talk about their actions. I mean, they left the man naked on the street in the middle of the winter, no blankets, left him sitting there for God knows how long. Why couldn't they just put him in a squad car?
Well, I'll tell you, exactly 30 to 40 days before this incident occurred, these officers were involved in a training that was state mandated, was written and instructed per the New York State Division of Criminal Justice Services standards, which is something that we should look at here in the state versus other states that don't have these requirements and standards. Exactly what they were trained on, exactly what that training module is a step-by-step example right to the second on what these officers did on that scene. They don't have the ability to go off script, say, and to do different things. They have to follow exactly the way they're trained. In fact, under the mental hygiene requirements for our officers, they'll have an ambulance attendee ask them not to have handcuffs on the individual in a transport. They are not allowed to remove the handcuffs in that situation. Everything they do, they have to follow protocol. When they go for review, and when this incident or any actions they do are reviewed, they have to conform exactly with those protocols. And I will tell you, I don't want to tell you. I want the State Attorney General's office to tell you. I think it should be independent. I think it should be, at the conclusion, very transparent. I hope, and I'm going to try to ensure, that when they conclude that investigation, that they not only come out with a decision, but they come out with substantial, transparent report and evidence to show. That's important. Listen, if there's a need to change the things, the way policing is done, let's change them. An officer does not have the ability to go or disregard what they're mandated to do and what they're trained to do.
Can you explain the use of the spit shield, what exactly it's supposed to be used as, and how they used it? They kept it on even after he threw up.
I'll show you. Have you seen it? Have you seen the hood? This is what the officers are given. I'll put it out here and show you. It's used in a case, in a situation where an individual is spitting. During the course of this, I mean, I think it's been out there enough where I can say that he made reference to having COVID. He was also spitting. There's a number of other issues with airborne pathogens that officers encounter that are very dangerous. That's the purpose and the protocol in place.
So even as he's throwing up, they're supposed to keep it on?
I'm not an expert on this, but my understanding in the medical field is that it's used for those cases and taken into consideration for that matter as well. I'm not going to speak specifically at the point. I think the evidence that the State Attorney General's office will have, and the videos and all of the videos and all of the information will show immediate reactions per protocols on what the officers should do and what was followed. I will say that we have to do things better, but that also includes on the hospital side, on the EMT side, on the responses to that as well. The officers have to be supported as well at 3:30 in the morning. They had to do exactly what they did. They had understand the frustrations on our part as well when we have to do the procedures and protocols that we have. We have no choice to vary from them at all. The officers are not, they have no desire, I'm not speaking to this incident in particular, but in any, they have no interest to have an individual on the ground. They have no other recourse until that ambulance can get there, until the gurney can get there. And when the officer has to reach out and say, where's the gurney? You know, I caution, but I say, I'm hopeful that all of the evidence and all the accompanying evidence, and there's other videos and other video media that's there that night that also should be released at some point in time to show in the context of it as well.
You referenced here from the police chief and the request to actually speak to your unit members. Mike, can you tell us when that happened and when that occurred? Was it characterized as a drug overdose case or something else?
On the first part with the chief, I'm sorry?
So when that phone call came from the police chief requesting to speak to the members, do you recall when that was and when that happened? Was it characterized as an overdose?
Yeah, it was within the next day or the day. We really, as I said, spent the last 2 days trying to pin down all of this and look at it.
So was it March when you heard the call from the chief requesting to speak to you?
It was within a day or two. If it wasn't that day, it was the next day.
And was it characterized as a drug overdose, as we've heard from the mayor?
No, it wasn't. You know, it was a very brief conversation, simply saying that there was an incident the other night. There's an investigation going on, and what I stated was what was told to me, and we proceeded as we have in any similar case. You know, understand. Unfortunately, there's a substance abuse problem out there. Everyone knows about. There's mental health issues and problems out there. We deal way too often with these situations. I wish and I hope there was another way than police officers at 3 o'clock in the morning to have to deal with this. But remember, those officers that responded that night were responding to a call for an alarm and a break-in. There was a different officer at a different location that was dealing with the Prude family.
Do you think there should be more help for police officers when you talk about dealing with mental health issues and seeing that as commonplace in the city? Is there a need to have teams that are also called in when it appears that somebody is suffering from some mental health issues?
I'll say this. I absolutely believe that we need more help. It wasn't that long ago when in New York State our mental health facilities were closed and people were just put out onto the street, and who was the only other agency to be able to deal with them? The police. We definitely need changes and we need help. What we have to understand is, and I don't have all the answers. I don't think anybody does. But how do we do that and how do we respond to it? At 3:30 in the morning, in a call that may give you no indication of what you're dealing with and what you're going to encounter. How do we do that at that point? And if we can get to those answers and we can get to that help, I 100% support that, as well as everyone of my 700+ members.
So we've been hearing a lot of different dates thrown out there from different local officials. I found out this on this date. No, that he didn't. I found this out on this date. So in terms of you, what's the timeline for you? We know you just said in March you got the call that your members needed to be spoken with. You didn't find out anything else. From there on out, what did you learn? What documents were you provided? At what times? What did you know and when did you know? Anything about the investigation, the AG,